Hey everybody, I'm Joey, and today I'm sharing another bite-sized kitchen hack. When we think of great steaks, steakhouse quality steaks, we usually associate that with high cost. And while that may be generally true, it really doesn't have to be. There are a lot of reasons why beef costs more than other proteins, but they all have one thing in common. The product you're buying in the store includes quite a bit of labor to get it there. One way to reduce the cost is to take on some of that labor yourself. And that's what we'll do today. Right here we have a New York beef top loin, which we bought from Costco. This behemoth weighs in at about 15 pounds and it's graded as choice. The first thing I want to bring your attention to is the price. This costs about $5.80 per pound. Over here, I have a trimmed and cut New York strip steak from the store. And look at the price difference. That's quite a savings. This is closer to $10 a pound. So how do you go from this big loin right here right to this steak? Well, that's what I'll show you today. First, don't be intimidated. It's really not that hard. I'm not a professional butcher and you don't need to be either. Just like anything else, you will get better with practice. Now, there's all kinds of information out there that really gets into the details about this loin. If you truly want to nerd out, there's a lot of information on the internet, but I just want to mention a few key points. First, this is boneless. Unless you own a bandsaw or you really want to add labor, I do suggest you buy it boneless. Next, this is the fat cap. It runs end to end. This can and should be trimmed based upon thickness and preference. I do like to keep some of it on for flavor and look, but the remainder can be used to grind for burgers or used as tallow. Don't throw it away. There is a tough sinewy portion that runs across the top, and that's known as the chain. You can usually follow it along with your fingers. You can go ahead and remove that prior to cooking, or if you're not really comfortable with that yet, just go ahead and leave it on. It's a bit more tedious, but you can always take it off after you cut this into steaks. And I'll show you how to do that later. So there are two ends. One is just all one clean muscle, and you can see that right here. This other portion connects to the cow where it meets the sirloin, and it's going to have a couple different muscle groups in there, usually a thick kind of fatty vein that runs through the middle. And once I open this up, I'll show you a little bit more in detail. Now we need to get it out of the bag, and there is a little bit of an art even to this. I don't like to cut it down here at the end. There's a lot of purge, a lot of additional juice in here. We don't want that running out, making a mess. I'm just gonna basically grab my boning knife and just cut it right down the middle, right here, get it opened up, and I'm not gonna tear it all the way to the end. And basically, it just takes a little bit of work, and we can go ahead and get it out of there. It's a big boy. Right there, all the juice is neatly trapped inside. No mess on me or the countertop. We'll get rid of this. And next, we just want to get some paper towels and dry this off. It's just going to make it a lot easier to work with. All right, so at home, I want everyone to see the difference between the two ends. This is the portion that has the different muscles that kind of come together, and you can really even see it. This is also known as where they get the vein steak from. We have a couple different connective pieces together, and it usually runs right around down in through here. You can kind of feel it, and it's a great cut to use as a roast. Now, I'll show you the other side. This looks much more like a typical New York strip steak. This is all one thick muscle with a lot of intermuscular fat. That's good fat, that's stuff we can eat. So now we're gonna go ahead and get this trimmed up. I like to just start right here on the bottom. As you can see, we have a lot of fat down here. It doesn't have to be perfect. As I mentioned earlier, it's dealer's choice. Sometimes you'll see some indents from where the bones met the loin. So I'm just gonna go ahead and begin to trim this up right now. Follow along. And what we want to try to do is we want to try to only remove the fat, leaving as much good meat on there as possible. And you know, it's just going to take some time. So that right there is the chain. Again, it's connected. There's a lot of fat and sinew there, but once you find it, and it took me a little longer than usual to find it here, just go ahead and get that cut off. This is still good meat that can be used for grinding hamburgers and anything else. Now, because I just kind of want to show you both ways, I'm actually only going to move about half of the chain here today. So that way, if you're not comfortable doing it at home, we can show you how to do it after you slice the steak. So again, it does run all the way down, but I'm just going to go ahead and cut it right here just so we can take a look at this a couple different ways. So I'm going to get this fat off the plate and I'll be right back. Okay, now what you can do is just take this fat cap, and none of it's edible, so you can really just shave this down, cut this down. You don't have to. You can just cut it into steaks from here, but I'd like to just go ahead and remove some of this. As you can see, it's really thick down here, so I'm just going to go ahead and just slice away until I get it to a thickness that I like. Okay, now I got this somewhat trimmed up. Again, it does not have to be perfect. I am not selling this at a store. I am using this for personal consumption. I've removed about half of the chain. I don't know how well you can see it, but I removed over here, and then I just left this part intact, just simply so I can show you at home what that looks like if you want to try to remove it after the fact. So before I move on, I've been working hard, so I'm going to have a little bit of beer. Remember, this is a very important part of cooking or grilling. Make sure it's always by your side. Next, we're gonna try to cut some of this into steaks in a row. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with the side that has the vein steak and the multiple muscles right over here. And I think that that makes for a great roast. And I'm just gonna go ahead and, I wish I had a longer butcher's knife. This is about 8 inches. If you had one that was 10 to 13, you can really cover the surface of that meat. So I'm gonna do the best that I can, and I'm just gonna bring it to about right over here. We're just gonna cut it to a nice roast. So here's what we're left with. Again, this looks like a typical steak you'd buy in the store, one muscle. So now it's really all about how to cut it. And there's a couple tricks I like to use here. The first thing is I like to get this side nice and flat, just so we get some really nice clean cuts. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut a thin steak over here. This is gonna go great with steak and eggs. We're just gonna go ahead and get that squared up, so to speak. So as you can see here, we have a nice thin breakfast steak. We have some fat over here we can trim up. Matter of fact, let's throw this with the fat and we'll use that for burgers. So no big deal, nice, clean, thin breakfast steak. That will be good eating. Now for the rest, here's a little trick I like to use. My two fingers right here, that's 1.25 inch steak. So I can measure to that, or if I wanna go 2 inches, for me, that's just 3 fingers. Again, so it's just a quick little hack that you can use at home to get good sized steak. So 1.25 inches right here. In order to make more even serving sizes, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this right down the middle, cut it into a nice fillet sized portion. And look at that, right there. So I just want to bring your attention to the differences between the hand-cut steak right over here and the store-bought steak right over here. And I have a question for you. Does this one look twice as expensive as this one? They don't to me. There are some minor differences, like the size of the fat cap on the exterior, but this is a great way to save a ton of money at home doing this yourself. Ton of value. You can save a lot of money. And there's a lot of ways to store these things in the fridge or the freezer, but what I like to do is, with all the money I'm saving buying it in bulk, I just bought a vacuum sealer. And that way I can properly store and secure these right in the freezer. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, like, or even better, subscribe to our channel for future updates so that you can keep on learning how to cook meat made easy. I'll see you next time.